France is a nation renowned for its rich history, cultural diversity, and contributions to the world. But behind its idyllic facade lies a deep-rooted societal issue that has been ignored for far too long: racial inequality. In this video, a geopolitical strategist, author, and speaker known for his insights on global politics and international relations, Zeihan, uncovers the historical, socio-political factors contributing to racial inequality in France. Examining pertinent data and illustrations that demonstrate the severity of these discrepancies is essential to grasp the significance of addressing racial inequality in France. By looking at the numbers, approximately 10.3% of France's population consists of foreign nationals. Based on a study conducted by France's National Statistics Agency, INSEE, it was found that over one-third of immigrants residing in France in 2021 obtained French citizenship. The study also revealed that immigrants and their descendants have integrated well into France's society, with many having children born in France.
In France, they made the decision back after the revolution that ethnic conflict was so extreme that they had to redefine what the term French means. So it didn't matter if you were Catalan or Basque or from Paris or Marseille or Alsatian, it didn't matter. Everyone was French now. And all of the various groups that had been part of a series of civil wars and disturbances in France going back a millennium, all of a sudden were considered all of the same family. And in the modern age, what that means, it's illegal, unconstitutional even, to collect ethnic data on the French population.
By the third generation, approximately 90% of individuals had only one or both grandparents who immigrated to France. Despite this diverse population, France faces a demographic blind spot regarding acknowledging and embracing different racial and ethnic backgrounds. Racial disparities persist in various aspects of life, becoming most apparent in areas like employment. Shockingly, individuals who immigrate, particularly those from non-European backgrounds, face a significantly disadvantaged position in the labor market. In 2021, their unemployment rate soared to a staggering 13%, surpassing the overall population's rate of 8%. Furthermore, they experience lower wages and are often confined to less skilled job opportunities. Moreover, systematic discrimination is evident in the employment sector as well. Studies have shown that candidates with names of Arab or African origins are 25% less likely to be called for a job interview, even if their qualifications match those of candidates with traditional French names. Such discrimination undermines individuals' confidence and obstructs opportunities for advancement and success. So what's the importance of addressing France's demographic blind spot? Identifying and addressing these blind spots will ensure that every individual, regardless of background, has an equal opportunity to succeed and prosper. However, the importance of addressing demographic blind spots and racial inequality extends beyond mere fairness. Failing to do so can lead to the marginalization of specific communities within our society. You see, limited access to resources, opportunities, and social participation perpetuates inequality, hinders social cohesion, and creates profound citizen divisions. Furthermore, addressing demographic blind spots and racial inequality has economic implications. Inclusive societies empower and harness the full potential of their diverse population.
The truth of the matter is we'll all do much better once we have a more environmentally friendly society. But that means and that requires that we address social inequality and the ability to accompany and to participate everyone in this environmental transition. And
by embracing diversity and promoting equality, it will unlock previously untapped talent, foster economic growth, enhance productivity, and strengthen the foundation of our nation. Zeihan's analysis brings attention to what he refers to as France's demographic blind spot. While it is too early to determine the duration and intensity of the current situation, France's distinctive historical and contextual factors contribute to its unique racial challenges. Zeihan contrasts the situation in France with that of the United States, where racial issues are continuously discussed. Unlike France, the United States has seen representation from various minority groups at all levels of government, including the historic presidency of an individual from the black community. However, France took a different approach after its revolution, redefining the concept of being French to encompass individuals from diverse regional backgrounds, such as Catalan, Basque, Parisian, Marseille, or Alsatian. This attempt aimed to mitigate long-standing ethnic conflicts that have plagued the country throughout its history. France's colonial legacy is another aspect that Zeihan highlights as contributing to racial inequality. Former colonies have seen substantial migration to mainland France, resulting in many individuals with French citizenship spanning generations. However, due to legal and constitutional restrictions, collecting racial data is considered illegal in France. This lack of data makes it challenging to gauge the scale and impact of racial inequality. Zeihan estimates that approximately 15% of the population consists of non-ethnic French individuals who face institutional racism, despite being legal citizens. Drawing a parallel to Brazil, Zeihan points out the divide between affluent urban centers predominantly inhabited by ethnic French populations.
So in the case of France, they don't even know how big the racial problem is. It's probably about 15% of the population is non-ethnic French, but legally French. And that has institutionalized the racism in a way that we have a really hard time processing here in the United States. In many cases, it's more similar to what they've got in Brazil.
And less privileged suburbs that resemble slums and house non-ethnic French citizens. Restricted resource allocation outside of law enforcement exacerbates this disparity further. Consequently, certain areas within major French cities can resemble armed camps, leading to an increased potential for violence as marginalized communities rebel against perceived oppression. Despite these challenges, Zeihan maintains an optimistic outlook for France's future. Unlike other countries, France has not heavily relied on globalization or integrated its economy extensively into the European Union. As a result, France remains somewhat insulated from external factors. Its status as a major agricultural producer and exporter, with access to energy resources, geographical distance from conflicts, and a close political partnership with Germany, positions France favorably compared to other nations grappling with globalization-related difficulties. Despite Peter Zeihan's reflection on France's inequality, various other contributing factors have led to racial disparities in the country. The specter of colonialism still haunts France today, leaving behind a legacy that has deep roots in racial inequality. Centuries of colonization and subjugation have forced an environment where specific populations are disadvantaged by the inherited inequalities imposed upon their ancestors. The scars of this colonial past are evident in the marginalized position of communities with African and Middle Eastern origins, perpetuating a cycle of exclusion and limited opportunities. The French government's assimilation policies of the past resulted in the segregation and marginalization of Algerian immigrants and their descendants, contributing to the racial inequality experienced by the community, even today. So what are the consequences of racial inequality in France? One is social unrest. France has witnessed recurrent instances of social unrest stemming from racial inequality. The exclusion of certain racial and ethnic groups from mainstream society leads to a frustration and social tension and amplifies the potential for civil unrest. One instance of unrest that occurred in the suburbs of Paris this year is the June incidents. It all began on June 27, 2023, after Nahel Mirzak was fatally shot during a confrontation with two police officers in Nanterre, located on the outskirts of Paris. On that same day, residents gathered before the police station to protest, but the situation quickly escalated into violence.
There have been a number of protests and a number of schools and police officers have been burned. The triggering event is the police killed a kid, I want to say it was like 15, 17, something like that. And so there's been this spontaneous uprising of violence. We haven't seen activity like this since 2005. Back then, similar cause, police killed a couple of kids that were hiding from the police, and it triggered riots that lasted several weeks.
As protesters set cars on fire, vandalized bus stations, and launched fireworks at officers. It's still too soon to know how long or intense the current situation will be. Systematic discrimination is another consequence of France's demographic blind spot. Despite its commitment to equality, the country struggles with embedded prejudices perpetuating discrimination. In employment, housing, and education, individuals belonging to racial and ethnic minorities often face disproportionate barriers to advancement and equal opportunity. The third consequence of racial inequality in France is education disparities. Education is a powerful vehicle for social mobility and empowerment. However, racial disparities persist within the French education system, hindering the ability of minorities to thrive academically. Limited access to quality education, cultural biases in curriculum, and insufficient support systems perpetuate inequality, creating a barrier to success for many young individuals from marginalized backgrounds. Racial profiling and discriminatory practices by law enforcement agencies have sparked outcry and further deepened racial division in France. Targeting individuals based on their appearance or ethnic background perpetuates a climate of suspicion and unfair treatment. The resulting feelings of alienation run counter to the principles of equality and undermine trust between marginalized communities and the authorities meant to protect them. And the last consequence of racial inequality in France is inadequate representation in politics. Meaningful political representation is a crucial aspect of combating racial inequality. When minority voices are absent from decision-making processes, policies addressing racial disparities are less likely to be prioritized or enacted. This lack of representation limits the ability to advocate for policies that highlight the unique requirements and difficulties that minority groups confront. Now, what has the government done to resolve racial inequality? And has there been a challenge in addressing racial disparities in France? France has historically embraced an assimilation ideology, often called colorblindness. Colorblindness refers to a perspective or approach in which France seeks to foster social cohesion and unity by downplaying or disregarding racial or ethnic differences. In other words, colorblindness suggests that the goal is to create a society where race or ethnicity does not determine one's opportunities or treatment.
And you've got a ring of suburbs that is more akin to slums, where most of the non-ethnic French who are still French citizens live. And because the French can't even do the first step of collecting data in order to get a good grip on what the size of the issue is, it's really hard for the government to apportion resources outside of law enforcement.
However, this approach fails to acknowledge and address the unique obstacles faced by racial and ethnic minorities, leading to an inadvertent blind spot in recognizing racial inequality. The colorblind philosophy may minimize the experiences of racial minorities, hindering efforts to understand and resolve the systematic barriers they face in areas such as education, employment, and housing. In September last year, the European Commission Against Racism and Intolerance, ECRI, issued a report calling for France to make certain improvements. These include better documentation of policy identity checks, acknowledging travelers' caravans as legitimate housing forms, and providing school staff with human rights education. France has also established institutions like the Defender of Rights and the High Council for Integration to address inequality, discrimination, and integration issues. Despite these efforts, societal and policy challenges exist in addressing racial inequality in France. On societal challenges, France's ideal of a colorblind society discourages open discussions about race and ethnicity. However, this approach often erases the experiences and struggles of marginalized communities, hindering the creation of inclusive policies. And on the policy challenge, France's historical approach to integration has emphasized assimilation, discouraging recognition and diversity and cultural expression. Now, is there currently a viable path for France to make progress and implement significant change? Here are the reforms that France needs to implement to curb racial inequality. Number 1. Education reforms. Enhancing the education system to promote a more inclusive curriculum that highlights the contributions of diverse groups can help foster a greater understanding, empathy, and respect among students. This can be achieved by incorporating topics related to colonial history, racial diversity, and cultural heritage into the curriculum. For instance, French schools can introduce literature, arts, and history lessons that showcase the experiences and achievements of individuals from different racial backgrounds. By doing so, students can have a deeper knowledge of racial inequality's complexities. Number 2, France needs to implement anti-discrimination measures. It is essential to strengthen existing anti-discrimination legislation and enforce it more rigorously. This includes reinforcing laws prohibiting racial profiling, discriminatory practices in housing and employment, and hate speech. Public awareness campaigns can be launched to educate individuals about their rights and encourage them to report instances of discrimination. For example, France can learn from successful models implemented in other countries, such as the UK's Equality Act, which provides comprehensive protection against discrimination based on race and ethnicity. Number 3, France can participate in community engagement initiatives. Facilitating open and honest dialogues between racial and ethnic communities reduces prejudices and fosters social cohesion. Creating spaces for dialogue, such as community forums or town hall meetings, can help bridge gaps and build trust. One practical approach is forming local community councils representing diverse racial and ethnic groups. These councils could actively participate in decision-making processes, ensuring that policies and programs are fair and inclusive. And lastly, the 4th reform, France can empower marginalized communities. Empowering marginalized communities to address racial inequality and ensure their voices are heard is crucial. This can be accomplished through initiatives supporting entrepreneurship, providing better healthcare access, and promoting economic opportunities. The French government can establish programs that provide funding, mentorship, and training to individuals from marginalized communities who wish to start businesses. Additionally, investing in healthcare facilities and services in underprivileged areas can help bridge the gap in healthcare access. You see, democracy thrives on inclusivity, representation, and respect for all citizens. By addressing these issues, it will bolster France's democratic framework. A society where demographic blind spots and racial inequality are acknowledged and rectified provides every member with a sense of value, ensuring their voices are heard and their needs are addressed. Zeihan's perspective invites everyone to consider alternative approaches to racial equality, advocating for inclusive policies that embrace diversity while addressing specific needs. Curiosity is the fuel that drives growth. To keep the momentum going, Click the subscribe button and watch the next video.